If you're planning on visiting Milford Sound from the beautiful Queenstown, you're going to want to watch this video. Hi, I'm Toby, owner and guide here at Lux Tours, a premium small group tour operator to Milford Sound from Te Anau and Queenstown. We've run hundreds of tours to Milford Sound from Queenstown, so we know a thing or two about planning it. Look, we always recommend starting from Te Anau rather than Queenstown if you can, because it's closer and makes things easier, particularly if you're self-driving. But we know that a lot of travellers are based in Queenstown or want to fit it into their itinerary while visiting. Driving from Queenstown is much longer, but it's absolutely doable with some planning. So let's run through our top 11 tips to help you with your planning. Point number 1, if self-driving, allow plenty of time. When you put in Queenstown to Milford Sound into Google Maps, you're going to get a result of something like 4 hours of drive time. We suggest adding at least 50% to this to make it 6 hours. Reason being, there's a lot of scenic stops to make. You're going to need the bathroom, you might need a coffee, you need to adjust for roadworks, fuel stops, food stops. On top of that, the road to Milford Sound is simply stunning. You're going to want to stop at least a handful of times. Point number 2, only drive if you're comfortable and experienced. Simply put, New Zealand roads are different. They're not wide, long highways. They're quite windy, quite narrow lanes, and heavy traffic at times. As a tour guide who has driven the Milford Road hundreds of times, some of the driving that I see can be pretty unbelievable. If you're not used to driving on the left or in similar conditions, jump on a tour and let someone else do the driving for you. Point number 3, if self-driving, plan your cruise time accordingly. Cruise timing is crucial when travelling to Milford Sound from Queenstown. For the most common cruise times, around 1 p.m, we strongly recommend departing Queenstown by 7:30 a.m. at the latest. If you've booked an early morning cruise, something like 10:30, or a late afternoon cruise around 3:30, this may mean leaving or returning to Queenstown in darkness, which we don't recommend for an extremely long day on challenging roads. A 7:30 a.m. departure from Queenstown for about a 1 p.m. cruise in Milford Sound provides the perfect balance. Point number 4, consider taking a tour, especially in winter. The roads from Queenstown to Milford Sound can be challenging, especially the Devil's Staircase out of Queenstown and the Milford Road from Te Anau. Driving in winter presents a different case of challenges, such as icy roads, closed roads, or even having to fit snow chains. And you need to check in with the Milford Road status, which reports road closures or delays, so we would definitely recommend taking a tour in winter. The planning and driving is done for you, and you don't have to navigate potentially challenging roads. Expert drivers gonna do it for you instead. A top tip, tour operators often reduce their pricing in winter due to lower demand and less costs, so it's often cheaper too. Point number 5, consider staying the night. We actually wouldn't recommend driving yourself to Milford Sound from Queenstown and back in one day, unless of course you can split the driving between multiple drivers. A better option may be to set off from Queenstown and stay the night in Te Anau. Te Anau is the last town before Milford Sound, and you must pass through it anyway to get to Milford, and it has an array of accommodation options. Another option is to camp alongside the Milford Road if you're travelling in a camper van. There are many campsites alongside the Milford Road that are low cost. Now, really importantly, there is only one place to stay in Milford Sound. This is the luxurious Milford Sound Lodge. This is a fantastic option if you fancy a splurge, but make sure to book in advance. Any of these options are great because it means that you can split the driving over 2 days. Point 6, plan accordingly if you're traveling with children. If you're traveling with children to Milford Sound, the long journey from Queenstown can be particularly challenging. We actually wouldn't recommend it for children under 5. The journey involves several hours of sitting, which can test even the most patient young travellers. Always pack more snacks than you think you'll need. If you're trying to avoid tablets, forget about it. Load them up with movies and games and books, and also consider bringing some new toys or books along for the trip. Point number 7, know your fuel stops. If you're coming from a country less rural than New Zealand, you might expect for there to be fuel stops everywhere, but that is certainly not the case here in New Zealand. Fuel stops will only be in medium to large towns, which there are very few on this journey. And after Te Anau, there are no fuel stops along the Milford Road until you actually reach Milford Sound. Fuel here can be quite expensive, and it can also easily run out. Leave Queenstown with a full tank of fuel up in Te Anau, and again on your return journey. Tip number 8, plan your food for the entire day. In similar fashion to the fuel stops, make sure to plan your food for the entire day when coming from Queenstown. The journey from Queenstown to Milford Sound features very few opportunities to grab food. Bring food with you from Queenstown or grab it in Te Anau. Tip number 9, don't rush. If you're on a trip with limited time, you're going to have to do Milford Sound in the time frame that you have. But if you do have more time, don't rush. Milford Sound is one of the rare places where the journey is as spectacular as the destination. The whole journey from Te Anau to Milford Sound is simply incredible, and there are so many scenic stops, short hikes or walks to do along the way. So we recommend not rushing there or back if you have the time to spare. Tip number 10, consider flying. Look, this is definitely a splurge, but it's absolutely worth it. Someone once said to me, if you take a plane from Milford Sound to Queenstown, it will be one of the most spectacular flights of your life. They also said, if you take a helicopter back to Queenstown, it will blow your mind. Both are spectacular options, but of course there are considerations depending on your budget. One important note, if you self-drive yourself to Milford Sound, you will not be able to fly back unless someone else drives the vehicle for you, so it's best to take a tour. And there are many tour options available for this. And finally, tip number 11, pack warm and waterproof clothing. Queenstown has a relatively dry climate, especially compared to Milford Sound, just over that way, which is one of the wettest places in the world. It could be a dry, sunny day in Queenstown or pouring with rain in Milford Sound, so pack accordingly. Always bring a warm top and always, always, always bring a waterproof jacket. So there we have it. We hope this has helped. Visiting Milford Sound from Queenstown is absolutely doable, but there's always a few things to consider. Happy planning, and we hope to see you in Milford Sound soon.